I'm going to give you 5 events, pivotal events from the 60s, and I just want your personal spin on it. It could be where you were at the time, what you think, about starting with JFK's assassination, which you say, in effect, really started the 60s.
Well, I think it stripped away the kind of romantic idealism that he symbolized for this country. He was a whole new generation of politician. He was so dashing looking. His lifestyle raised the sights of all the rest of us as well. They were not just guys who went to the country club and played golf on the weekends. They were skiers and sailors, and it was quite vicarious for those of us living out in the heartland. And then he was gone.
And then he was shot.
And I was in a newsroom in Omaha and read the bulletin in disbelief, ran down, went on the air with it. Omaha was kind of a clenched fist of a city, and as I came out, we had a crusty old conservative engineer that I didn't get along with at all. And he said, "What's going on?" I said, "JFK's been shot." He said, "About time somebody got the SOB." And so there was that, it was not all Camelot in America.
Did somebody have to restrain you after that?
Yeah, I did. I went after him and somebody grabbed me.
That's what I thought.
I had other business to do, but I regret now I didn't deck him.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, what about LBJ's victory over Goldwater? You write about that in the book, and that was, isn't that still the biggest margin that any?
It is in terms of a raw vote, yeah, and electoral victory.
What did that do to us?
Well, it was Goldwater. It's hard to believe in the conservative environment that exists today, but he really was the godfather of the modern conservative movement. An utterly charming guy. Any number of liberals who served with him in the Senate will tell you how much they liked him, how engaging he was. But a lot of us at that time were very suspect of the students who were walking around campus with pocket protectors and carrying a copy of The Conscience of a Conservative, Barry Goldwater, because it was so extreme at a time when John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson later were using the government as an instrument of advancing society and for economic justice, and especially for racial justice. So it was not a surprise that Johnson would win. It seemed just like an extension of the FDR years, and 4 years later it was over.
Right, yeah. Okay, the fun stuff, the British invasion, the Beatles. I heard you talking today on KC Live about music, which really defined this generation.
I think that's the consensus choice of that time. People have grave differences about the politics, about the language that was used, about wardrobes, about drugs, but then they stop and say, but we all agree about the music, for the most part.
I remember my mom, who you just met, screaming at the first Ed Sullivan show, "Tom, you've got to get in here and see their hair." It was stunning to her.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember that night.
Well, it was just like my parents watching me watching Elvis Presley, not that many years before.
Yeah.
That was tough for them as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So the Beatles changed a lot of things. I think probably Bob Dylan, however, more than any other artist of the time, was a real catalyst and an inspiration. Almost every songwriter and artist I talked to would mention Dylan at some point.
Yeah.
The boldness of his lyrics and his style and the message. The times they were a-changing, and we were blown in the wind, and we're like a rolling stone. I mean, it was, he caught the zeitgeist of the moment. Joan Baez, who lived with him for a while, doesn't have much good to say about him personally, but she said he did have a rainbow pen, which I think is a great line.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into the last event, and I want you to tell the story of you being in a cab in San Fran, and as a young reporter, with your button-down shirt.
I looked like an FBI agent or a narc. I had a white button-down shirt and a narrow tie and a trench coat, as I remember that night. I'd just come from Berkeley covering a demonstration, and the cab driver said, "Mister, what do you do?" And I said, "I'm a journalist." He said, "Do you know about this neighborhood called Haight-Ashbury?" And I said, "No." Spring of '67, Summer of Love was just getting underway. So I went there, and it was like stepping out of the cab into the bar scene of Star Wars. I'd never seen anything quite like it. Kids from all over America with headbands and love beads and peasant dresses, and everybody was stoned. Bongo drums going in the background, and a young woman walked up to me, put out her hand, had a tab of acid. She said, "Hey man, want to share the tab of acid?" And I said, "No, what's going on?" She said, "It's the hate." So I spent a lot of time there. I was interested in the culture and the anthropology of it, and it was pretty self-destructive. Janis Joplin lived around the corner, died of a drug abuse, overdose. Kids came strung out from all across America. I did a documentary in those days about 3 young people who came sniffing glue all the way from Texas. I wonder whatever happened to the rest of their brain cells after that.
Right.